How's it going, everybody? It is Wednesday morning. I'm sitting here. It is 10 minutes after 9 a.m. on the West Coast. Lineups don't lock until 4 p.m. today. We have an 11-game slate on DraftKings that we have to break down. And just like always, I'm sitting here looking at the slate, trying to figure out who my three best values are and which two studs I want to lock into lineups. There's a couple of questions that we can get after, this or that, this player or that player, but it's a large slate. So the value, the extreme value, is probably going to present itself in the last 30 minutes before lock. So most importantly, be sure that you are at your workstation the last 30 minutes, if not more, before lock. If you can budget 45 minutes, if you can only budget 15, you can get it done, but that's a little bit of a tight window to digest all of the information, to be able to spit it back out into your lineups properly. You need about 30 minutes in daily fantasy NBA. This is not like NFL. This is not like daily fantasy baseball where you have all the information. The NBA is the wild, wild west. And in order for us to be able to process that information, be at your workstations 30 minutes before lock, because the information on this video might change. There's a good chance that it won't. Some of this value is still going to be viable before lock, but major value may open itself up, especially on a large slate like tonight when players are rested, players don't play, and it gives us an opportunity for you to be able to have access to that value if you have to adjust. Be nimble, be ready to pivot. Let's take a look at this this lineup sheet today, and let's see what we can get to. We have to find three value plays. We have one who popped up the other day who is 100% going to be the same guy tonight. Old Bobby. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Nikola Mirotic may not play tonight. Now, Portis didn't punch him this time. But with him out, we see what happened last game. 33 minutes, 30 fantasy points, priced at 4.7K. We need about 25, 26 fantasy points from him. You see the difference in his minutes played with and without Mirotic recently. If Mirotic sits tonight, and right now he is looking doubtful for this evening, Portis becomes an absolute plug and play. If Mirotic is out, I want as much Portis as I can get. In terms of tournaments, I usually top out at 80% exposure if I'm playing 150 lineups. If Mirotic is out, I'm probably going to end up with about 80% Portis. He's going to be highly owned. I don't know how highly owned, maybe 40 to 60% owned. I'll probably outpace the field on either one of those numbers if he is there. So he's your plug and play. He's the first one that we want to get after, and he gives us a good chance to beat value. Another value play that we have tonight is Etwan 3-Twan more. Playing a ton of minutes recently. Getting a good amount of looks. Ignore this. Okay? Ignore the 11 for 14 last game, because people are going to game log watch. They're going to look at this and they're going to say, wow, 32.5 fantasy points. He's a lock to get 32 fantasy points again, so I have to play him tonight. Well, I do suggest playing him tonight, but nobody is going to maintain 78% shooting when on the season they're shooting 54%. This is a great percentage for somebody like Etwan Moore. This is unsustainable. When he gets back to shooting around 50%, that's going to shave some of these points off the board. He is not going to he's not going to get 25 points every night. He is playing against Memphis tonight. They are a little bit hobbled. They're not the same Memphis team that they were in the past in terms of being as great as they have been defensively. It's still a situation where I want to go after Etwan Moore tonight. If other value opens up, I will attack that other value. K-Sig Pig, thank you very much for the Twitch Prime sub. Another new member. Show him some love in the chat, please. But right now where I'm sitting in the morning, he is a nice plug-and-play value for me at shooting guard or small forward, which allows me to pay for the guys that I want and still leave me with enough salary for leftover for later. Now, if I have to pivot off of him later, I'm happy doing so, especially with that hyper efficiency last game from the floor. I'm not expecting that. Expect him to shoot about 50%. Project him for shooting 50%. Ignore the 32 fantasy points and just think that you need about 25 fantasy points for him to reach value, and you'd be happy with that. Anything above is gravy. For the last value play that I'm looking at, Courtney Lee. Playing an absolute boatload of minutes. 5K, I need him closer to 30 fantasy points. Not a huge amount of upside here. That's past his fantasy points per game. But I like the play here, especially considering that minutes equals money, and he is getting 35, 40, 28, 36 minutes. Averaging 32 per game on the season. He's bumped up just under 10% to 34 minutes a game. If he plays 35 minutes tonight, we're likely to get close to, if not exceed value, and get more than that, 25 fantasy points. I like the play here at small forward. Again, another player that only chips in with scoring, or mostly chips in with scoring, that if value opens up later, and on an 11-game slate, value will tend to open up the closer we get to lock. And we do have, 3 games at lock right at lineups lock, so we'll get information on these 3 early. We also have these 2 games here, Brooklyn, Detroit, and New York, Chicago, that lock early. There's a few plays in this Brooklyn game that I like as well that we can talk about. Spencer Dinwiddie, 6,700, has just been completely crushing recently. The price is going up. The percentage owned is going to go up. We need about 40 fantasy points from him. There is a possibility for a floor with 2 of his last 4 games being under 30 points, so there is risk here, but you definitely have the upside, and you're getting the amount of shots that you need to pay that salary off, which is something that's not intriguing, but from 4, 11, 9, 6 to shooting the ball 24, 15, 14 times, the more Spencer Dinwiddie shoots the ball, the more chances he has to exercise value on this salary. You need him to shoot it 15 plus times tonight. If you feel that's going to happen, I think he's in play. Levert, also another player who's going to see a bump in minutes with the injuries that they have, should play greater than his typical allotment of 25, 26 minutes, could get as high as 29 to 31 minutes. If he does, he's somebody who's electric, gets on the floor, does shoot the ball a ton. This is a situation where game log watchers are going to go against themselves, as he went 2 of 13 last game after a couple games where he shot more around 40%, which is what he's going to shoot. And look at his fantasy output in those games versus the game where he shot 2 of 13. Expect this to rebound to somewhere around these levels, and this points per game to rebound to probably around 28, 30 fantasy points, which would pay off his salary. So another play that we're looking at, I like Lee better than him, just a couple of hundred in savings. We've talked about how I want to be more salary conscious in NBA than in other sports. Now, the center spot's where it gets a little bit interesting. One, Andre Drummond against Brooklyn is a very, very good play. He averages more fantasy points on the season than does Nikola Jokic. Maybe it's just a mental block for me. Maybe it's the risk involved with Andre Drummond. Maybe it's the injury that he had played through and missed a few games with, though he came back and played 40 minutes against New Orleans the other night with the big-on-big matchups that they had there. Still dealing with a rib injury. Probably a lock for a double-double tonight, especially against Brooklyn. We'll see if he approaches a Barbara Walters game with a 2020 situation, but I prefer Nikola Jokic at 100 less. Going up against Atlanta, multifaceted, playing back to his mid-30s minutes, which is where we want and need him. 11 assists, 10 assists the last 2 games. Averaging 10 rebounds on the season. Double-doubles in his last 3 games, triple-double in his last game, and approached a triple-double 4 games ago against Phoenix. The ball has to flow through Jokic for this Denver offense to get moving and move properly. To get this at the center position, to have an option for a triple-double here, I want to lock and load that at center. And then at our forward spot, I'm going back to Boogie Cousins at 11K here, with Anthony Davis possibly out tonight. He's not... at the time I'm taping this, he is not out, but he is currently questionable for tonight. Boogie Cousins is as good as they get. He had a bad game last game and had 46 points. He had a bad game. Can we repeat that? He had a bad game and had 46 fantasy points. Okay? Averages 55. His usage will spike without Anthony Davis out there. We're going to have to look for some other value plays if Anthony Davis sits, because other players are going to play the amount of minutes that Davis normally plays, which is going to give us, he averages 35 minutes a game, so that's 35 more front court minutes that open up for somebody whose price is a 14 or 15-minute player to bump up to 25 or 30. So looking for value instead of Anthony Davis, but definitely a usage bump and a fantasy points per minute bump for Boogie Cousins without Anthony Davis on the floor. That's my 5. We've got 5.33K left per player for a point guard, a guard, and a utility spot. There will be value that opens up throughout the day on an 11-game slate, so please be ready and nimble for that to open up and see what else you can do with your lineups, where you can improve, and always going to look like a stars and a scrubs day for me on an 11-game slate. So thank you for watching. Please smash that like button and click subscribe before you leave, and leave me a comment section in the comment section down below. Before you get out of here, let me know what else you want to see from these videos, or if they've helped you. Hopefully they have. So thank you for joining once again. You can join the live stream on Twitch if you want at twitch.tv/al_smizzle. That link and all the other links that are pertinent are down below in the chat. So thank you for joining once again, and we'll be back probably probably Friday, but maybe on Thursday for one more of these first look videos. So thanks for joining, guys, and I'll catch you later. Jay Slaughter, thanks for the new sub!